stand to our Pledge of Allegiance, please. Real good, Ken? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We've all had a chance to take a look at the regular agenda. Do I have a motion to approve same?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Second. All those in favor, or Kim? Sorry.
Councilmember Carr?
Aye.
Councilmember Rogg?
Aye.
Councilmember Giefer?
Aye.
Councilmember Cornett?
Aye.
Mayor Huber?
Aye. Thank you, Kim. We've all had a chance for the last 6 days to look at the consent agenda and our bill list. If there's no questions, do I have a motion to approve said agenda? Mr. Giefer makes a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Councilmember Carr?
Aye.
Councilmember Rogg?
Aye.
Councilmember Giefer?
Aye.
Councilmember Cornett?
Aye.
Mayor Huber?
Aye. Thank you very much. I believe first up is our city attorney, Nick Vivian, if I'm not mistaken. Do we have him?
I'm here, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, hi, Nick.
Recording in progress.
Good evening.
Go ahead, Nick.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. On your agenda tonight, under my items and reports, is a public hearing that relates to the property located at 9250 Delwood Road North. This relates to an abatement, a tax abatement, and dates all the way back to 2019, prior to our firm becoming re-engaged by the city. There was an assessment project affecting Delwood Road, for which the owner of 9250 Delwood Road North appealed his assessment. And this wound its way through the district court, up to the Court of Appeals, back to the district court. And it was determined that based on some of the characteristics of the land, that the city was not authorized to assess this particular property for the project. The original assessment was in the amount of $22,447.44. Of that amount, approximately $9,622.44 has been paid as part of the assessment. And so tonight, as a result of court order and judicial decision making, this is before the council on a public hearing to abate this entire assessment, that amount of $22,447.44. And furthermore, to reimburse the property owner for the greater of $9,622.44 or the actual amount paid toward the assessment to date. So I would ask the council to move into a public hearing to take any comments. And then once the public hearing is closed, then it is my recommendation that the council act upon the resolution that is in your packet. Provided that the council approves a resolution, the administrator clerk will then forward this executed resolution to the county, and the abatement process will be completed and funds will be remitted back to the property owner. So, Mr. Mayor, I would ask that the council move forward with the public hearing at this point.
All right. Thank you very much, Nick. I'll need a motion to open a public hearing, please.
Motion to open public hearing.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Tom?
Councilmember Carr?
Aye.
Councilmember Rogg?
Aye.
Councilmember Giefer?
Aye.
Councilmember Cornett?
Aye.
Mayor Huber?
Aye. To open up our public hearing, anyone who would like to speak on the consideration of Resolution 2024-16, please step up to the microphone, sign in if you would, please, and let us know what's on your mind. Public hearing going once, twice, and 3 times. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing, please?
Motion to close public hearing.
Second. Second.
Councilmember Carr?
Aye.
Councilmember Rogg?
Aye.
Councilmember Giefer?
Aye.
Councilmember Cornett?
Aye.
Mayor Huber?
Aye. Nick, do we have an opportunity to discuss this for a moment, or do you need an immediate motion and it's not to be discussed by the council at this point?
No, it's certainly available for discussion by the council if you'd like, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, very good. I want to make a couple of things real clear about the abatement on this. This got batted back and forth in the courts, as Nick has already explained, as a result of an agreement that was made well before anyone sat at this council table. Well before, years and years and years. The agreement that the former city at that time, most likely a township, made with this landowner was not something we would do at this point. We have been assured by legal staff that no more of these types of agreements exist in Grant, and this will be the last time that we'll be considering an abatement of this type based on the lack of those agreements to be found in the city. So there could be some serious questions on this, but I will say it had nothing to do with anyone sitting at this table. We're simply honoring what the courts have ordered us to do in this case as a result of former council people or former township chairs. So at that point, looking for a resolution unless there are other comments to be made. Okay. 2024-16, do I have a motion to approve this abatement, please?
Also move.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Councilmember Carr?
Aye.
Councilmember Rogg?
Aye.
Councilmember Giefer?
Aye.
Councilmember Cornett?
Aye.
Mayor Huber?
Aye. Thank you, Nick. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And we have another public hearing for the consideration of resolution 2024-15, application for a variance at 11635 Grenelefe Avenue North. And if I'm not mistaken, our planner will be heading this one up. Is Jennifer with us?
Yes, she is.
Hi, Jennifer. Are you there?
Hi, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. So before you this evening, we have a request for a variance from our wetland setback standards. The property is located at 11635 Grenelefe Avenue. The property is approximately 5 acres, just a little bit more, and it is zoned A2. We did notice a public hearing for this evening since we are taking a look at a variance request, and I am going to go ahead and share my screen. I have just a short presentation. We have looked at very similar requests in the past, so this should be fairly short and sweet, hopefully. So the application this evening is to encroach within a setback for a wetland area due to an existing sewage treatment system that is failing and it must be replaced. They are proposing to install that replacement septic system within the setback area, which we'll talk about in just a moment, at about 35 feet from a delineated type 2 wetland edge. So as a result of that, it does necessitate the variance request this evening. Per the applicant's narrative, and then also the site plan or the concept plan that was submitted, there are not other adequate areas on the subject property that can adequately support the replacement system. That graphic we'll look at in just a moment. And just a reminder that when we take a look at these systems or these requests, that when we're looking for what is adequate, that is defined typically as undisturbed soil, so things that are in their native state, meaning that they haven't been driven over, there's no driveways, hard surfaces, no structures, etc. So essentially we're looking for native land or land that has not been disturbed for those suitable areas. When we take a look at our variances, we have a couple different criteria that are applicable. City Code sections 3259 and 3260 establish the criteria. Just a minor change that when we look at variances now, we really are looking at them for the practical difficulty. That's a little bit of a change from the hardship language that originally existed in the ordinance. But essentially, we're looking for situations that the practical difficulty is in complying with the intent of the ordinance or the true standards of the ordinance. That would make it very difficult to comply. So if there is something that is physically about the land that creates the situation, or if there are conditions that make it impractical for following the ordinance to the strict interpretation of that ordinance, that you may grant a variance from that standard. So obviously, in this case, we are looking at the septic systems. And so section 12-260 is actually where you find some of the language with respect to the setbacks for a sewer or sanitary system from those wetland areas. So the existing conditions, obviously the site was developed quite some time ago. You can see that there is a fair extensive amount of both drainage and utility easement that exists on the property, as well as wetland areas that are contained within those drainage and utility easements. It was platted back in early 1980, the early 1980s, 1981. It generally slopes down from east to west. The low areas are obviously where those wetland areas are, where the drainage naturally wants to go. And those drainage and utility easements were established as part of the platting process back in 1981. Here's an aerial that gives you a sense of what we're talking about. The pink area on this graphic is the area where the delineated wetland boundary was identified. They did just do that edge because that is the closest edge to which the septic system, the replacement system, would be located. I just want to note that if you look at the prior graphic, that wetland edge per the National Wetland Inventory is actually was thought to be not quite as far to the east. I would note the fact that we have had an extremely wet year, and as a result, anyone who has had to do a wetland delineation knows that some of those wetland areas have gotten significantly larger than what was identified on the NWI. Part of that delineation determined this was a type 2 wetland. That typically means that there's no standing water. As it stands, actually, our ordinance is silent on type 1 and 2 wetlands, and we defer actually to the watershed district in which the property is located for any setback or buffer standards. And then the watershed district, if they don't have those standards, then it defaults to Washington County and their standards. So essentially the buildable area on the property or the area that could be suitable would be those areas that have not been disturbed. So areas that are not improved with the existing home, the driveway, the failing septic system, et cetera. So anywhere that those disturbed soils exist. So when those areas are identified, then you see this graphic, which is the site plan, but I would also call this sort of the constraint analysis, if you will, in terms of where the suitable areas might exist. You can tell from the concept plan graphic here that essentially a large percentage of the area is either developed, meaning it has the home, the driveway, and hard surfaces. There are 2 large wetland areas that do exist on the property. And then obviously there's some outdoor landscaping, the pool, and then the existing drain field, which is on the south end of the site, and the existing septic system. So when you take all of those areas out of the analysis, there are very few options left, which is why they have proposed the area that they have, which is essentially an area that the soils are undisturbed, meaning virgin soils, the most capable of supporting the septic system, while maximizing the setback to the extent possible. But obviously the location that's been identified necessitates the variance because of the encroachment into that setback area. So the variance specifically that's being requested tonight is from the wetland setback. As I noted, our city code is actually silent on type 1 and type 2 wetlands. We actually make a reference to the fact that then the watershed district becomes the next standard that we take a look at. Rice Creek Watershed District also does not provide a specific setback standard from type 2, and they default to the county. The county does not differentiate between the type of wetland, and therefore the overall setback is set at 75 feet. So as it's proposed, it's 35 feet. That constitutes approximately a 40-foot variance. And so as a result of that encroachment from the county standard, a variance is required. So as shown on the site plan and as I've described, the current septic system is failing. It does need to be replaced. The location of the wetlands, the drainage and utility easements, and the existing drain field are limiting the viable placement options for a new system. The soils, drainage pathways also are inhibiting or constraining that area where a new system could be set or developed. And the use of the existing drain field would be the absolute last resort from the standpoint of the soils are clearly disturbed and may also have some contamination as a result of the failing septic system. So if an alternative is available, that would be the most desirable. So when you look at all the natural physical constraints that exist, they're not created by the applicant in this case, and that concept plan or that site constraint analysis demonstrates that the available space to site the replacement system is very limited on the site. So in terms of the reasonableness factor, which is part of the zoning analysis, it's obviously reasonable that this site would be served by a septic system for rural residential uses to continue exactly what the property has been used for since it was developed in 1981. The city engineer did not have any additional comments. In terms of other agencies, obviously, they need to contact Rice Creek Watershed District to ensure there are no other permits that would be necessary as a result of the installation of the new septic system. And they also obviously need to get their septic permit from Washington County, which also was part of how this review came before you, because they flagged the fact that a variance would also be required at the city level prior to them issuing a permit for that replacement. So in your staff reports this evening, there is a draft of the findings that are provided. Obviously, as we've noted in prior reviews that were very similar, this is clearly a health, safety, and welfare issue in terms of ensuring that we've got a properly functioning septic system and to make sure that it complies with the new standards. In terms of our conditions, once again, they do need to get the proper permits from Washington County. They need to contact the Watershed District to make sure there's no other permitting that needs to occur from their perspective. They need to limit any disturbance to the existing wetland to the extent possible. So that does mean staying at the line that they've established in terms of disturbance. And with that, staff does recommend approval of the requested variance this evening with the conditions that are noted, and we have provided a draft resolution for you this evening. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I will toss it back over to you and happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Fantastic. Let's do that first before we do the public hearing here. Gentlemen, John, go ahead.
Jennifer, what is the distance to the wetlands for the existing septic that's failing? That was the question I
let's see
asked Kim to ask you.
So just a ballpark estimate, because I'm looking at it on my screen, which you can probably tell. But if I were to ballpark it from that edge, it's probably 600 to 700 feet away would be my ballpark.
Okay. And when the property was first developed, they always have a primary and then a secondary area for septic. What happened to the secondary?
So that's not always the case. It depends on the time in which it was developed and what the rules were at that time. So in 1981, I would have to double check, but the primary and the secondary drain field actually was not always a requirement. You had to have a primary. That's part of the issue with some of those older lots that were developed, like for example, in the 60s and the 70s, and actually it may have encroached into the 80s, that there was not a secondary drain field. And there was only a primary. And that did cause the problems because there was not a protected secondary area. So in this case, it does appear that there was not a secondary drain field area just based on that area. And that likely complied with the permitting standards at that time.
Okay, and this house was built in 87, I believe?
Again, I would have to go back and look.
So it was,
The
because I talked to
lot was
Washington
platted in
County.
81.
So
Typically, the way we've dealt with
Right.
septic, which I think would have been similar, is that when the plat came through, confirmation of adequate septic area would have actually occurred with the plat. and then they would have come in for their permit when they constructed.
And if they did have a secondary and the pool wind up being in the secondary, how come we are so close to the wetlands now when the pool was put in probably well after? That's my question. I mean, you only have so much room for septic, and the pool was probably where the septic probably should have gone when the first one failed. So it seems as though there's a compounding of things here, and now they're going to go closer to the wetlands than they should be. And, you know, normally I would not say that this is something that, you know, they did it to themselves. And so I'm a little concerned with getting it to a point where we have a 40-foot variance to the wetlands. Because as we all know, you know, when they that close to the wetlands, it's never good. And I understand what you're saying, you know, it's a class 2, but Washington County and us, we don't differentiate. It's 75 feet. So what do? Just say, sure, go close to the wetlands, because you have nothing else. But do they? Is the question. Do they?
So, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I don't have any evidence to suggest that the pool was the secondary drain field area. If that was a secondary drain field, it would have had to have been protected. So without evidence that that is in fact the case, I think we're making an assumption. So I'm not sure exactly how to answer that one. I also don't know when the pool was put in. So to confirm that that soil would have been acceptable, I don't have anything that demonstrates that that was a secondary drain field location, because I'm not sure a secondary would have been required at that time.
Okay.
So that's my first
Right.
thing to address. The second would be that based on this constraint analysis that was provided based on the current improvements and the existing conditions of the lot, there are no other areas based on the septic designer's analysis that are suitable. In terms of the setback from the wetland itself, typically type 1 and type 2 wetland areas are not as high of a quality. It's not a given, because this isn't a MinRAM, which would be a quality assessment. But many times other cities, jurisdictions, et cetera, their type 1 and type 2, because there's no standing water, et cetera, do have reduced setbacks that are not, 75 feet is typically a preserve or a very high level, high quality wetland. So we don't have a full wetland assessment in terms of the quality assessment in our ordinance. We would have to have that in order to make that distinction, but just by way of reference, other communities, when we're dealing with a type 2, depending on what the classification or quality of that wetland is, could have setbacks that are approximately 20 feet, 20 to 25 feet. So in terms of protecting that wetland edge, obviously that's part of why they need to stay as far away from it as possible, but that encroachment still provides 35 feet, and if no other area is available, that it could still function properly. The wetland could function properly based on where it's designed.
Is there any other designs that you know of that would change the distance to the wetland? You know, the old style is the
I'm not a
tank and
septic
leach field.
designer.
But I mean, you know, we've talked about this before, when you have tank systems where you have a tank and another tank and another tank, and they kind of spill into each other, and they're half above ground, and then, you know, it takes up less room than a typical 1 tank or 2 tanks in a leach field. We've talked about this before in the past. You don't recall that?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council,
Okay.
I'm not a septic
right.
designer, so I do not want to get into the specific design characteristics. That would have to be a question that we'd have to ask, because there are so many different factors that go into a septic design in terms of, you know, the drain field location, how large it has to be, what type of system it is, What does the effluent look like? Is it a mound? Is it under all of those things? So I certainly wouldn't say that I have the technical expertise to say how we could shrink or move that drain field location.
So with the person that is designing it, do we have to have a question for that person? Do we have enough information to make a decision today? That's my question.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I think that's up to you to determine whether you believe you have enough information or if you need more.
Okay. Thanks, Jennifer.
Anyone else? Ben?
Jennifer, I was wondering, so even regardless of our decision today, Washington County's still gonna have to make their own assessment? Is that what I'm understanding, just to make sure I'm not? So even if we agree to it, they're still gonna have to go through the county who really controls and protects the wetlands?
Well, Rice Creek.
And Rice Creek.
Rice Creek, yes. Is that correct?
So, correct. So Rice Creek Watershed District is the entity that essentially looks at the wetlands. We oftentimes defer to their rules. They are the LGU or the RGU in this particular area. So Rice Creek would potentially have something to say about it. Although again, they don't have setback standards from a type 1 or a type 2 either. They default to the county. The county is who's going to look at the septic design itself to determine whether or not it obviously complies with all the rules, and as a result would not be able to impact or drain into the wetland area, obviously.
Okay. So they're the experts that actually determine whether or not it's gonna mess up the water or what's going on around it?
Correct. This is simply the setback standard from the edge, which I would note just because it's been an extremely wet year and it has impacted a lot of folks in a lot of different communities that I've worked. If you look at what the concept plan in your packet looks like, the wetland edge per the DNR or the National Wetland Inventory is significantly smaller or further to the west than where the delineated edge is, and that likely has a lot to do with the fact that we've had an extremely wet year.
Thank you.
All done? Tom?
Yeah, and to point out that we were a township back in the 80s and didn't become a city, so they were handling our engineering and our planning, and they should have, if it was on the plat, it should have been a secondary area marked on the plat back in the day, and if they didn't do it, they didn't do it, and the only thing they didn't give up is still septic, so they're still doing it, and we do the other stuff, so. And as was stated, it's between the watershed and the county, this is not really our issue. Obviously, if Ryan, how you doing, Ryan? If Ryan wanted to challenge this, and he could have went through the county, but that wouldn't have been our fight either, so. I think it's kind of what it is, so.
Yeah. Jeff?
No, I was just gonna agree with Tom. I mean, we had these before, where we did our due diligence and made sure, like, the proposed location is the only possible one that's identified, and since we're not experts in septic system engineering or watershed maintenance, we pass it on to the county. And have we ever seen, Jennifer, where the county has denied a septic system replacement? I don't think we have we?
No.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, to my knowledge, no. We have always been extremely careful about making sure that they minimize the variance to the extent possible, meaning get it as far away from that wetland edge as possible. And we also do make them delineate that edge to make sure that we know exactly where it is on any given year. So to my knowledge, not that I'm aware of, I think we've very much done our due diligence in the past, and I think they've always been approved.
Need a motion?
No. I have questions for Jennifer. Jennifer, let's dive in a little deeper here. Second page of your report, or third, pardon me, I'm looking at wetland 1, type 2, PEM 18, I guess it is, or 1B, fresh wet meadow, so no standing water. Is that area of the meadow correct here, 0.02 acres? Page 3.
Yep. I need to pull up my staff report,
Yep,
so hold
please do
on
that.
just one moment.
There's a legend in the top right-hand corner of that photograph, of that drawing in this case, I guess. No, that's a photograph.
I'm almost there, just one moment.
No worries. I got it in front of me. I've been looking at it for a while.
So on page 2, the aerial,
Yeah, the aerial photo,
B,
it's
excuse me.
free for me. But yeah, the aerial where it shows the home, and then it shows the wetland type 1, type 2, or wetland 1, type 2, and then it has fresh wet meadow, and then the acreage is .02.
so that's, the .02 is the area that's just within that pink boundary, which is the area that was delineated. The wetland itself is much larger and goes and extends further to the west.
Okay,
That pink, it's just that pink area, because when we do the variance for the septic design or the drain field, we have them to help them save costs. They only have to delineate the edge in which they're encroaching as opposed to the whole wetland.
gotcha. Makes sense. So basically on this lot, if this were to be built, we would be possibly, and with a mound system, a double tank system, possibly impacting .02 of an acre. Now, let me just pivot here for a second, back to hardship versus practical difficulties. Standards used to be a hardship, you had to have a hardship, and now it says practical difficulties. Who changed that language, and why do you think they changed it?
So, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the state changed it. So the state statutes are actually what identify the hardship versus practical difficulties. It was changed because there were actually cities, they were out on Lake Minnetonka, that basically had used that standard to essentially stop all types of development. And so at that time, there were a few court cases that sort of wound them through all the way from the very lowest levels of court to the highest levels of court in Minnesota to say you can't do that. That's a regulatory taking, et cetera. So they changed the language and the guidance to practical difficulty, because there are certainly things that are a practical difficulty of a piece of property or land that make it difficult to comply with the strict interpretation of an ordinance. So that language was changed. So it was at the state level, and cities were required to adopt that revised language.
I remember doing it, and it makes perfect sense because the hardship ends up being a taking, basically a taking of your property by the state, whatever subsection of the state it is, all the way down to the city. So change to practical difficulty. Interesting. One other example when we've done this, if you leave here, go out and you take a right all the way down that road to the T intersection, you'll notice a small house to your left and a rather large pond. In fact, they're connected underneath 75th. We did a variance for that home and had to intrude into the wetland delineation boundary as well there, because they had no practical way to treat sewage because they had some difficulties with their field there. Those are large ponds. This is a type 2 wetland. Tell me again what a type 2 wetland is.
So type 2 indicates that there's no standing water. So oftentimes, actually, if you're standing out there, you may not even know it's a wetland, especially in a dry year or even in a not, an average year, if you will. So it essentially means that there's saturation in the upper levels of the soil. And so you will see that, and there will be indicators, wetland plant indicators that are in those particular areas. And it's basically a saturation of that top soil, the top layers, if you will. But there's typically not standing water that is visible.
Perfect. Now, one other question. We don't have any type 2 standards, so no setbacks, no anything. The watershed, who is responsible for the waters within their LGU area, has no standards for type 2. Why?
So different watershed districts do it different ways. And so some watershed districts have actually undertaken basically a full study of all the wetlands, which would include type 1 and type 2, where they would do what's called a MinRAM, or they basically classify it by quality and then also by type. Rice Creek Watershed District just hasn't completed that or done that. And so as a result, they have regulations that are specified for type 3, standing water bodies, unclassified water bodies, those types of things that have standing water in them. But to my understanding, do not have a standard with respect to the septic setback from a type 1 or a type 2. They are simply defaulting to the county standard, essentially.
And the county standard being 75 feet seems to be pretty high-hanging fruit, if you will. It looks to me like a default position on the county so they don't get in trouble or in legal action with the RCWD or other watershed districts. Is that a fair description?
I don't know if it's to not get in trouble, but I would say it's a default. It's a very conservative position to say 75 feet. It also takes away the onus of having to establish the quality of the wetland, which is sometimes an onerous process and can cost more money for landowners, et cetera. So because if you have to do the quality and the type, it's just a more involved wetland delineation process. So it's sort of a catch-all, I would call it. And it is the most conservative classification. 75 feet in a lot of watershed districts is like a preserved status where it's, for example, Browns Creek Watershed District has identified like the fen, which we've looked at numerous times as sort of a preserve, if you will, quality, as in like high quality, bears a lot of importance within the watershed district, high level of protection, et cetera. So oftentimes there you'll see a 75-foot setback. And so the 75 feet, I would say, is a very conservative approach in terms of assigning the highest quality to everything.
Okay, so we're talking about, in that case, protecting the only trout population in Washington, Wisconsin with a 75-foot setback, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
That's very
okay.
typical.
All right, not too many trout in type 2s because they can't swim. All right, so this has to go back through the county. Rice Creek Watershed has to look at it. The contractor will have to do everything they can to stay back from that. We've done these before. This is nothing difficult. Whether or not a swimming pool went where perhaps there was a second delineated area for a drain field. Now, let me just ask one additional question on that. I come in for a permit to get a pool, and I'm gonna put it on my yard. Is there any type of process to determine whether or not people are building on a protected area when I get a permit for that?
Typically, yes. So on a lot of plats, for example, you'll see in most of the plats we do today, the primary and the secondary drain fields are identified very clearly, and you wouldn't be able to put a pool on those areas because when you get a permit application in, especially when we're looking at a new lot, we will look at how it was platted and look at the preliminary plat that has the primary and the secondary identified on it.
Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate all those answers. Sorry to keep you there so long. Any other questions from the council? Otherwise, I'd like to open a public hearing on the matter. Jeff, do you have a question? Gentlemen? No. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing on this variance request, please?
Also move.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second?
Thank you.
Councilmember Carr?
Aye.
Councilmember Rod?
Aye.
Councilmember Kiefer?
Aye.
Councilmember Cornett?
Aye.
Mayor Huber?
Aye. Thank you, Kim. Ladies and gentlemen, if anyone would like to come up and speak on this variance request, either for or against, I'll have you approach the podium, write down your name and address if you would, and give us your thoughts. Sir, come on up, please. If I could just have you write your name and address down, please.
My name is Scott Sinclair. I don't know if I have any issues. Could I just see where the putting it? I happen to be the property owner just across Washington County 7
Okay.
to this, and the water flows across my property, and we had problems with culvert under 7.
I'm gonna stop you for a second. You're across Highway 7. What city are you in, sir?
I'm in Grant.
You are in Grant. Okay, go
Yep.
ahead, sir. Sometimes you're not, as you well know, across 7. So
Right there I am.
thank you, sir. Go ahead, please.
So I just would like to know where they're putting it, because the water comes across, comes through the culvert, goes across our property to the north, flows into the creek, and then into Fish Lake, and then into Bald Eagle.
Okay.
So is it the orange area there? Is that what I'm trying to?
Jennifer, are you still with us?
Yep, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I don't know if you can see my little cursor or not.
Yep.
So if you see the purple wetland this purple wetland strip.
Yes, we see your cursor there, yep.
Oh, perfect. So here, this black is the proposed location of the drain field. So it is to the rear of the lot, or the rear as it's, to the east of the property. And you can see that the the septic designer has noted some of the drainage areas to keep it specifically off the drainage areas that are happening from adjacent properties.
Okay, Jennifer, just one more question. Our commenter seems to be very satisfied with your description there. Just one more question for you. This is a full mound system, right?
That's my understanding, yes.
That's your understanding. That was my understanding as well, sir.
That's my
Are
understanding.
we good?
too, so
All right,
I'm
Mr.
fine.
Sinclair. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else, please? Public comment? Going up. There we go. If you could sign in for us, sir? Yeah, we'll do. Thank you.
Hey there, thanks for having me tonight. I'm Ryan Doman. I'm the homeowner at the property in question. I'd just like to address a couple of things. I actually purchased the home June of 2014, so I've been there a touch over 10 years now. And at the time of purchase, the pool was there already. And so, again, I think it's maybe a bit of an assumption, but I also made an assumption when I purchased the home that we followed the proper processes to assure that everything was up to code and such at that point, right? The other comment that I guess I'd like to make is that we have worked with a septic design company that does this for their living, and they explored every square inch of the property. And this was the only option that they were able to come up with. I can reassure you that I don't want to, not that I don't enjoy your presence, but I don't want to be spending time here tonight. We had hoped to get this, completed months ago, and it's been a process to be here. So unfortunately, the location that's been identified is the only best option as it's been explained to us to this point. And I do believe that they have already started to consult with Washington County as well.
The designer was talking to Washington County already, and so they're aware of kind of the situation. So
Yeah.
just talking about design styles and different types of designs, this is where we're at. We're in
And,
Washington County.
and those will go through the county. Continue, Mr. Dillon, please.
Yeah, that's really the only comments I wanted to offer. If there's any questions, though, I'm also happy to help address that.
At this point, I want to thank you for coming up. Hopefully, we'll get you out of here pretty soon. All right, if there's no one else, I'm going to close the down public comment.
Make a motion.
Yeah, need a motion.
Make a motion to close public comment.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Councilmember Carr?
Aye.
Councilmember Rod?
Aye.
Councilmember Cornet?
Aye.
I'm sorry, Giefer.
Aye.
Councilmember Cornet?
Aye.
Mayor Heber?
Aye, thank you, Kim. Any more discussion on this, gentlemen? It looks like we've got our sort of an information overload here. It sounds as though our governing authorities, where we do not have standards, have provided us standards, and they've also provided us oversight of the construction as well as the siting on the site. So I think we're being about as safe as we can. In my opinion, I would entertain a motion to grant this variance under Resolution 2024-15, please.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Ben.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Councilmember Carr?
Aye.
Councilmember Rod?
Aye.
Councilmember Giefer?
Aye.
Councilmember Cornet?
Aye.
Mayor Heber?
Aye. Thank you very much. Good luck with that.
Thanks. Take care, Ryan.
Nice to have a septic.
We're both
back.
getting older.
Nice to
see
have
ya.
a septic. Kim, do you want to take on the new business here on the city council meeting minutes, or do you want me to do that?
No, I'm much quicker.
Oh, good.
Councilmember Rod missed the last meeting, so we just could not put the minutes under the
Oh,
consent agenda. He needs to abstain,
Abstain.
so we need a motion.
Sure. Motion to approve city council meeting minutes.
I'll second.
Who was
I
the
thought you were,
second?
I thought you were gonna save us time. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second?
Councilmember Carr?
Aye.
Councilmember Rogg?
Abstain.
Councilmember Giefer?
Aye.
Councilmember Cornet?
Aye.
Mayor Huber?
Aye. Preliminary budget. The city had several budget meetings regarding the budget that we are proposing for the upcoming year. And I will tell you, what we have settled on at this point is very different from what we settled on the last time we did this. The last time we did this, the average impact to the average home value in the city was $24 per year. The average impact this year on our proposed budget moving forward into '25 will be $11.07. So it's very much diminished as the result of a number of different factors. And I won't even get into them because it's really complicated, and our treasurer knows all those factors, so you can talk to her. So we're down to $11.07. Now here comes the fun part. We were at 3% when that $24 was charged per average homeowner. We're now at 5% in order to do the 1107. From my perspective, obviously everyone here has their own perspectives, so you feel free to explore those perspectives. It is important for us at this 5% to maintain our reserves to the extent possible, but even at 5%, the city is still spending down reserves. We are not holding on to your money and not spending down reserves. We're still spending those reserves to provide city services, right? So, and the overall impact is going to be less. Now, this will be decided in its finality in December, when we can actually reduce this. We will not be able to raise it, but we can actually reduce it if the feedback is such, or the political situation has changed nationally. Who knows? I don't know. I can't read the future. But at this point, we are at 5% for that impact of 1107. Gentlemen, other comments on this?
I think it's a good number.
Yeah, I think it's a responsible number. We're still spending down the reserves, but not at a horrific rate where we're worried about having state mandated reserves. We're not even close to that. So we still have pretty high reserves. We feel pretty comfortable with it, and we've put a lot of effort toward this, so I think we're doing the right thing here. But again, things change, and who knows what could happen moving forward. Exactly. Now, if someone would like to make a motion on this, let's go ahead and do the preliminary budget motion first with the number we decided, please.
I'll make the motion. The levy resolution of 1,507,910
That's levy. We're gonna do the budget
and
first.
the budget
Yeah,
of
budget first.
$2,058,466.
Yeah, and resolution 2024-17. Jeff has made the motion. Do I have a second on his motion?
Second.
Thank you, John.
Councilmember Carr?
Aye.
Councilmember Rogg?
Aye.
Councilmember Giefer?
Aye.
Councilmember Cornet?
Aye.
Mayor Huber?
Aye. Second on this portion of our budget, as we've already discussed, is the preliminary levy. Preliminary because I already discussed what could happen in December. So, if someone would like to make a motion of 2024-18 with the levy number included?
I will.
Oh, go ahead, John.
I make a motion to approve resolution number 2024-18, resolution establishing the preliminary levy certification for the city's general fund at $1,507,910.
910. Thank you, John. Do I have a second on that?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ben.
Councilmember Carr?
Excuse me, aye.
Councilmember Rogg?
Aye.
Councilmember Giefer?
Aye.
Councilmember Cornet?
Aye.
Mayor Huber?
Aye. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, gentlemen. Moving forward into unfinished business, we have none. Discussion items. Kim, any staff updates?
Not at this time.
Thank you very much. City council reports. Gentlemen, anything you'd like to talk about in the future, have on a future agenda? Anything on your mind? Nothing? I also have nothing. John Rogg, can you read our community calendar for us, please?
Yeah, let me get back to that. Where is that? There it is. Community calendar, Matabele Public Schools Board Meeting, Thursday, September 12th and September 26th, Matabele District Education Center at 7 p.m. Stillwater Public Schools Board Meeting, Thursday, September 12th, Stillwater City Hall, 7 p.m. And Washington County Commissioners Meeting, Tuesdays at the Government Center at 9 a.m.
Thank you very much, John. For those of you who have not read the Washington County Update periodical that they put out a very interesting article on the second page, or actually third page, upper right. In conjunction with the state government, Washington County will be providing, shall we say, grants to people to buy their first home. That will be up to $35,000. So it's something you might want to keep in mind as you pay your taxes every year. With that, I'd ask for an adjournment, please.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Second?
Got John on it.
Councilmember Carr?
Aye.
Councilmember Rogg?
Aye.
Councilmember Giefer?
Aye.
Councilmember Cornet?
Aye.
Mayor Huber?
Thank you, and aye. Thank you all. We'll see you in October.